3 years. That's how long I was married to Denise before I found out who she really was. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue back in 2022. Dated for a year, got engaged, did the whole thing. Her family loved me. My family thought she was great. Everyone kept saying we were perfect together, and I believed it because I was an idiot who wanted to believe it. Quick backstory because it matters later. I owned a small contracting business before we got married. Nothing huge, just me and 2 guys doing home renovations. I was doing well enough to buy a house and put money away. Denise worked as an office manager at a dental practice. When we got married, she pushed hard to combine finances, and like a fool, I agreed to most of it, but kept my business account separate. That one decision is probably the only reason I'm not completely destroyed right now. Here's what happened. Last October, I was working on finishing our basement, turning it into a home office. I'd been down there all Saturday morning running electrical when I realized I left my drill bits upstairs. So, I went up the basement stairs, through the door into the kitchen, and that's when I heard her voice coming from the living room. She was on a video call. I could tell from the sound quality. And then I heard a man's voice respond. Not just any voice, Donald. Her ex-boyfriend from before me, the one she swore she had no contact with, the one she told me was toxic and controlling, and that she never wanted to hear from again. Alright, so already we're seeing the classic setup. Dude built something real with his own hands, small business, bought a house, did everything right, and the universe said, you know what would be funny? Let's see how much betrayal one man can absorb on a random Saturday morning. Because that's the thing about these moments. They never come when you're ready. Nobody gets betrayed during a dramatic thunderstorm at midnight. Nah, it's always while you're looking for drill bits, while you're making a sandwich, while your whole world is about to implode, but you're thinking about power outlets. And Donald, the ex she painted as the villain of her past. See, this is why I have trust issues with anyone who talks too much trash about their ex. Sometimes it's warranted, but sometimes they're building a cover story for future operations. I stood in the kitchen doorway and could see her reflection in the hallway mirror. She was on our couch that I paid for, laughing with this guy like they were best friends. Then I heard her say something that made me grip the door frame until my knuckles cracked. She told him everything was almost ready, that she'd been laying groundwork for months, that by the time I figured anything out, it would be too late. Donald asked if she was sure I wouldn't catch on, and she laughed. Actually laughed. Said I was too trusting. Never questioned anything she told me. So focused on work, I didn't notice what was happening right in front of my face. She called me a naive little boy who thought love was real. Naive little boy who thought love was real. I need everyone to understand how calculated that sentence is. That's not something you say in frustration. That's not heat of the moment. That's a woman who has been looking at her husband like a mark for months, maybe years, and has developed actual contempt for the fact that he loves her. She's disgusted by his trust. His kindness is pathetic to her. And honestly, this is the scariest type of person walking around in society because they look normal. They say, I love you. At night, they plan vacations. They meet your family. And the entire time in their head, they're running calculations. You're not a partner. You're a resource extraction project with a timeline. The man is literally building her a home office in the basement, building it with his own hands. And upstairs, she's laughing about how stupid he is for caring. I can't. I stood there for 2 minutes listening. She mentioned something about making sure certain things were in place legally, something about timing. But then she heard me shift my weight and went quiet and said she had to go. I walked back down to the basement before she could see me. Sat on a bucket for an hour staring at the wall. Not crying, not yelling, just processing. Because here's the thing, some part of me had been waiting for this. Something had felt off for months. The way she'd get weird about money conversations, calls she'd take in other rooms, little things I'd brushed off because I trusted her. That trust ended October 14th at 11:47 a.m. I know because I looked at my phone while sitting on that bucket and told myself I'd never forget it. What Denise doesn't know, what she still doesn't know as I write this, is that I managed to record the last 40 seconds of that call. Not enough to know exactly what she was planning, but enough to know I needed to find out fast. If you're still reading, Buckle up because what I discovered over the next 2 weeks made that conversation look like nothing. Update 1. Alright. A lot of you asked for an update, so here it is. Thank you to everyone who messaged support and advice. Some of you were right about things I hadn't even considered. After what I heard that Saturday, I knew I needed more information before doing anything. So, I played the part, went back to normal, finished the basement project, acted like nothing was wrong. Denise didn't suspect a thing because, like she told Donald, I was too trusting to notice what was happening in front of my face. Well, she was about to learn that trusting doesn't mean stupid. The first thing I did was start paying attention to everything. Her routines, her phone habits, when she got quiet, when she left rooms. Within a week, I noticed a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening when I was supposedly out with my brother Jude for our regular gym sessions, she'd have long video calls. I confirmed this because I told her I was going out one Thursday, but actually sat in my truck down the block watching our living room window. Saw her pacing around, gesturing at her phone for almost an hour. But here's where it gets complicated. Shout out to the commenter who asked about my family because this is where that matters. My mother Isabel has always adored Denise. Boys. Since the day they met, she's been telling me how lucky I am, how perfect Denise is, how she finally has the daughter she always wanted. And over those next 2 weeks, I started noticing that Denise had been having a lot of private conversations with my mother. Lunches. Shopping trips I wasn't invited to. Just the two of them. I asked Jude about it because he's the only person in my family who ever seemed skeptical of Denise. He told me something that made my stomach turn. He said Mom had been making comments for months about how I work too much, how I don't appreciate what I have, how Denise deserves better than being married to someone who's never home. Jude said he pushed back and Mom got defensive. Said Denise had been confiding in her about feeling neglected. Neglected? I work hard so we can have a good life and she's been telling my mother I neglect her. That night I couldn't keep pretending. Denise was in the kitchen making dinner and I walked in and asked her straight up why she'd been telling my mother I wasn't around enough. She froze for maybe 2 seconds, then recovered and said she was just venting. That all wives vent to their mothers-in-law. It was nothing. I said it wasn't nothing if my own mother thought I was a bad husband. Denise got defensive fast. Said she was sorry I felt that way, but she couldn't control how my mother interpreted things. And maybe if I was around more, she wouldn't have anything to vent about. The audacity of this woman to stand there and tell me the problem was me not being around while she's secretly plotting with her ex-boyfriend. I stayed calm, asked her when she last talked to Donald, and that got a reaction. She went completely still and asked why I was bringing him up. I said I was just curious since his name came up in a conversation with a friend. She said she hadn't talked to Donald in years, that I knew that, and why was I being weird about it? She lied to my face, looked me dead in the eyes, and lied. I dropped it because I wasn't ready to show my hand yet. But something she said during that conversation gave me my next lead. She mentioned that her mother Grace was coming to visit next month and we should plan something nice. Grace, who lives 3 hours away and rarely visits. Suddenly planning a trip right when Denise is putting things in place. I made some calls. What I found out about Grace's involvement made what I'd heard on that video call look like a warm-up. Update 2. Remember how Grace was planning to visit? Denise and her mother weren't close. Quick surface calls maybe once a month. Suddenly, Grace was making a special trip right when everything was almost ready. I went through Denise's tablet while she was in the shower. Same passcode for everything. Her birthday. Found her WhatsApp messages with Grace going back months. Grace hated me. Not disliked, actively hated. Messages from before we got married where she told Denise she was settling, that I wasn't good enough, that Denise deserved someone more refined. Grace thought a contractor was beneath her family. Called me working class with working class thinking. Said Denise was wasting her best years on someone who'd never give her the life she deserved. And Donald was Grace's golden boy. They dated 4 years before me, and Grace never forgave Denise for leaving him. Donald came from money, management position at a tech company. Everything Grace wanted for her daughter. She'd been encouraging Denise to reconnect with him for over a year. What got me was finding why Denise went along. She wrote that marrying me was a mistake she made because Donald wouldn't commit at the time. That she'd been waiting for him to be ready. She wrote she deserved happiness and I was just an obstacle to remove. An obstacle. 3 years of marriage. An obstacle. Grace's visit wasn't social. They were coordinating. Grace was bringing paperwork Denise needed for whatever legal setup they planned. I confronted Denise that night about her mother. Asked why Grace was really coming. She tried innocent. Said Mom just wanted to see us. Why was I paranoid? I said I knew Grace didn't like me and wanted to know what they discussed. Denise got angry, called me controlling, said she was allowed a relationship with her mother. I pushed harder, said I'd heard her on the phone discussing plans. She went pale but recovered. Said I misheard her talking to a coworker about a project. I asked what project. She fumbled. Said it was complicated. Then she flipped it on me. Started crying. Said she couldn't believe I was spying. This was exactly what her mother warned about, that I was possessive. She said, maybe we needed space. Maybe she should stay with Grace when she arrived. That's when I knew they were accelerating. Whatever they planned, my pushing made them move faster. So I moved faster. Contacted a lawyer next morning, pulled our prenup from my safety deposit box. Kept my copy somewhere she couldn't touch. Started making calls about my business, making sure everything was protected. What I discovered about what they'd already set in motion made me realize I wasn't fighting for my marriage anymore. I was fighting for everything I'd built. Grace arrived on a Thursday. I was ready. See, while they thought I was oblivious, I'd been busy. My lawyer reviewed everything. The prenup was solid. My business was protected. And I had screenshots of every single WhatsApp message between Denise and her mother. Plus that 40-second recording from the original call. Grace walked into my house like she owned it. Barely acknowledged me. Went straight to hugging Denise. They disappeared into the kitchen whispering while I sat in the living room pretending to watch TV. But I'd placed my phone on the kitchen counter earlier. Voice memo running. That recording caught everything. Grace brought documents she wanted Denise to sign. Affidavit claiming I was emotionally abusive. That I controlled the finances, that I isolated her from family. All lies designed to invalidate our prenup and destroy my reputation in court. They discussed how Donald had already lined up an apartment for Denise. How once the divorce was finalized, she'd move in with him. How I'd be left with nothing while they all laughed. I walked into that kitchen and set my phone on the table, hitting play on the original recording from October. Denise's voice filled the room, calling me a naive little boy. Grace went white. Denise started stammering excuses. It was taken out of context. I didn't understand. She was just venting. I told her to stop. Just stop. Then I played the recording from 5 minutes ago. Their whole plan in their own words. Grace tried to leave. I told her she could go, but I was sending those recordings to everyone. My family, Denise's coworkers, our mutual friends, and my lawyer, who was filing papers that afternoon. Denise grabbed my arm, begging me to wait. We could talk about this. She made a mistake. Donald meant nothing. I asked her straight, was any of it real? 3 years? Was any of it real? She couldn't answer. Just kept saying I didn't understand the pressure she was under. Her mother expected certain things. She got confused. Confused. She called 3 years of lying confused. Jude came over that night and helped me pack her things. Grace took Denise back to her place 3 hours away. I filed for divorce the next morning. The proceedings took 5 months. Denise tried everything, claimed the recordings were obtained illegally. Tried to say I manipulated her. Even had Donald submit a statement supporting her character. My lawyer dismantled all of it. The prenup held. She got nothing from my business, minimal assets, and had to pay a portion of legal fees. Last week, I drove past the courthouse after signing final papers. Denise was outside with Grace, sitting on a bench. Denise was hunched over, crying into her hands. Grace was on the phone, probably with Donald, trying to figure out their next move. I didn't stop. Didn't say anything. Just drove home to the house that's mine, to the business that's mine, to the life I protected because I trusted my gut when something felt wrong. Shout out to everyone who followed this mess on Hidden Lies. To the commenter who told me to check the tablet, genius move. To everyone who said protect the prenup first, you were right. They thought I was a naive little boy. Turns out I was paying attention the whole time. That final image, Denise crying on a bench outside the courthouse. Grace on the phone, scrambling for Plan B, is cinematic justice. Not because of the tears, but because of what it represents. They spent months building a trap. They coordinated across state lines. They recruited his own mother. They had fake abuse allegations ready. They had an apartment lined up. They had everything planned. And it all fell apart because one man forgot his drill bits. Life is wild like that. The whole scheme depended on him being oblivious. And they were so confident in that assumption they got sloppy. Same password for everything. WhatsApp messages sitting on a tablet. Loud planning in the kitchen with a phone on the counter. They thought they were masterminds. They were amateurs with an undeserved confidence.